This episode's profile, you'll meet a scientist who's developing the forensic tools to recognize a fake when he sees it. Hany Farid is 42 years old and spends much of his time making fakes and forgeries, images that are meant to trick the human eye.
When I am creating a forgery, it is a little bit like being an artist. You have to think about, well, the colors and the palettes and the lighting and the contrast and all the various things that artists probably think about. I find it really fascinating to try to create these visual fakes. I think it's interesting purely from an aesthetic and artistic point of view.
But Hany is not a forger or a crook. He's a Dartmouth College computer science professor who likes taking chances. He rides a Harley.
There's something really exciting and risky and slightly dangerous about it. I wouldn't give it up for anything.
And Hany is anything but predictable.
So on any given morning, I might take a shower, brush my teeth, shave, get dressed, and leave. And on another day, I'll shave, shower, brush my teeth. Or I'll brush my teeth, shower, and shave. Or I'll brush my teeth, have my coffee, and then go back and do it. What happens is when I fall into a routine, I think my thinking falls into a routine.
Thinking is his obsession.
You have to wake up and you have to go to sleep thinking about the problem and turning it around and spinning it. So everywhere I go, I have a pad of paper and a pen.
What he's thinking about is something called digital forensics, an entirely new field that Hany helped pioneer.
The basic idea is, think forensics the way you would think CSI forensics, but now it's pixels instead of hair.
As a digital detective, Hany takes what he learns from making forgeries.
So imagine you're somebody who's trying to catch a counterfeiter. How do you learn? How do you learn how to detect that? Well, you have to know how they do it.
And he creates powerful software. When he runs that software on a photograph, he can show if it's real or fake. Like this Time magazine cover of O.J. Simpson, well known to have been manipulated.
I think we do want to believe what we see. It's our first reaction. I, however, think that is changing. More and more, when people see photographs that are fantastic, there is an initial, oh, how do we know it hasn't been Photoshopped? The reality is that photographs have been manipulated since the 1800s, since the start of photography, actually. So you're talking about something that's been going on for hundreds of years. And if you look throughout history, in fact, all the great dictators doctored photographs to change history. Stalin did it, Mussolini, Castro, Mao. They all manipulated photographs.
In the digital age, we're flooded with images. And the problem of the tampered photograph has only gotten worse.
A picture with a flash. This is like computer graphics, right?
Hany and his team of graduate students have joined forces with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. But how can they beat the forgers?
That's exactly right. So is this... Most of what we think about is authentication.
If you save it, does Photoshop preserve that?
Can you show that something has been added to the image? Has it been removed from the image? Has this person been airbrushed? Is it somebody else's head on somebody else's body? So think about all the types of digital fakes you've seen. The guy holding the really big cat, the really big Hogzilla, all those things. We ask the question, is this a legitimate photograph? Okay, so what if you have two images?
They approach it like a detective would.
In a sense, images contain natural fingerprints. So we build tools that can detect these fingerprints.
One of the most common ways of manipulating a photograph is to remove something or somebody from a photograph. And the most common way to do that is to typically take one part of an image, copy it, and paste it into another part of the image to hide that person or that object. And when you do that, you've left behind a very specific statistical trace. You've left behind two regions that are virtually identical.
And that process is called cloning.
Probably the most famous example of cloning was the photograph that Reuters published that came out of Lebanon after an Israeli strike. It showed smoke billowing out of a building.
To Hany, something about the smoke looked unnatural. But how could he confirm his suspicions? Hany created software that detects identical pixel patterns.
so we've developed a very efficient algorithm that can detect whether two parts of an image are identical. We call this the anti-cloning tool. The software analyzes it, and what comes back is a color-coded image that says all of these pixels, which we color-code in red, for example, are same as all of these pixels, which we color-code in blue. So there are these two highlighted areas. It's very distinct, and it's very recognizable.
Hany's software confirmed that the photographer had digitally added more smoke after the photo was taken. Portions of the image had been cloned. Hany was able to develop his next technique thanks to the budding relationship of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in 2005.
This is when they were still rumored to have a relationship, and everybody was dying to get that photograph of them together.
So was this infamous photo real or fake? Hany could see with his own eyes that something was very wrong. His clues were the light and the shadows.
Interestingly, by the way, most people don't notice it. They look at the image, two beautiful people, who cares, right, where the light was? It doesn't matter to us.
Just by looking, Hany could tell it was a fake.
The light was off by a good 120, 130 degrees. It was completely opposite directions. So for Brad Pitt, the light was on his left, and for Angelina Jolie, the light was on her right.
Which means there were two separate photographs made to look like one.
So that made us think, well, this would be a really cool digital forensics tool. What if we could estimate from an image where the light was?
Thanks to Brangelina, Hany used linear algebra and physics to develop his light direction software. It can tell you where the light came from when the picture was taken. It was the perfect tool for the 2004 presidential campaign.
One of the most damaging political forgeries was the image of John Kerry sharing a stage with Jane Fonda at an anti-war rally. So this is when Senator Kerry was still trying to get the Democratic nomination for president.